welcome to everyone to our third and final talk in the Quantum View of Spirituality lecture series. And we are here today with the founder of the Diamond Approach, Hamida Lee, who writes under the pen name Almaas.
So we've done 2 talks so far. This is the third one, which doesn't complete it, it's just the last one we're doing. And the idea here, the quantum view of spirituality, is that I'm not talking about quantum spirituality. And by spirituality, I'm talking about a way of looking at spiritual experience, spiritual illumination, what's called realization or awakening. Using the lens of quantum theory and physics, because many of the conceptualizations and the finding on a quantum theory or quantum mechanics, or what's called quantum field theory now, is that many of them can be used as lenses to understand some kind of spiritual experience. And the quantum view of spirituality is basically hinges on the most important insights, which are there are many ways of experiencing our spiritual nature or fundamental, innate depth. And there are many, and that spiritual nature has many potentialities, and those potentialities appear as different kinds of realization or illumination. So many teaching around the world, they posit only one kind and they take it to be the fundamental final truth. And I'm saying I don't take that view. I take the view that each one of them is correct. They are finding a way that our spiritual nature manifests itself to a human being, but there are other ways because there are different teaching and they're different. And so the quantum view of spirituality is actually explains the differences between different traditional teachings. And before I continue, I want to clarify something about the last lecture. Some people sent a question, which is I talked about one kind of realization, I call it non-condition, which is the experience of suchness of thing, which is everything as it is. So it's not a matter of experiencing pure awareness or pure consciousness or pure love, but everything as it is, all particulars, everything as it is. So there's a question about what is the self, there is no self in this experience, this realization. There is no sense of there being an observer or a witness. There's just things as they are. So I'm just want to clarify that it's very difficult to imagine what that means for most of us. Well, you see things, there must be somebody seeing them. In this cow realization, there is no sense of a seer. I mean, if you think about it, you think, well, somebody must be seeing. But in the experience, there's no sense of somebody from which seeing comes. So that's just to complete something about the last lecture. And now I'll begin with this new lecture, the third one, which we're going to take another findings, quantum theory, and use it to understand another kind of a spiritual illumination or awakening that we haven't discussed before. First, we need to set the ground, which is we talk about quantum ideas. Quantum basically means it emerged in the beginning of the 20th century by seeing that in the subatomic level, energy comes in discrete amounts called quanta, and they're very small, discrete amounts. So it's not like it's a continuum. No, it's discrete. That's what differentiates it from what's called classical theory. But I used 2 important principles in all the lectures, what's called the measurement issue, measurement question, which has to do with the role of the observer, that how somebody has to observe, has to make an experiment and take a measurement for there to be an outcome, a result, and that the observation or the result depend on the experiment, on what is the question being asked. And so that is sort of similar to spiritual practices, which is it depends what experience we have, depend on what is our attitude, what is our question, what do we want to know, what kind of practices we engage in. That will determine to some degree what kind of experience we have, what kind of illumination we have. And I discussed another notion from quantum theory, which is what's called the principle of superposition. That before you measure any outcome from some kind of experiment, a quantum on a subatomic level, the idea here is that there are infinite number of possibilities for most systems, for complex system. It's like the quantum, what's called the Schrodinger equation. It has a wave function. Wave function is called probability wave. I mean, all the probabilities are there. So there are an infinite number of possibilities, and we don't know which one it is. We're going to find out until we make the measurement. The quantum so superposition mean all the solution for this equation, they're all there, and there are many of them, and they're all possible. They make up what's called the probability wave. Each one has a probability of being true. But we don't know what the thing is. That's the thing, it cannot be predicted. Classical theory, you can predict what's going to happen. Quantum theory, you can't predict, you have to make an experiment. So that sets the ground for us, which is I did the last two lectures. I'm going to use another principle later for this lecture, which will also help us focus on and understand another kind of spiritual realization. And that will bring us to what I want to talk about. What kind of realization has to do with some kind of unity. There are, in spiritual experience and spiritual awakening, there is a sense of unity. Everything is one. There's no separateness. Everything is one. So the unity is the classic mystical or spiritual experience, that all is one. And this kind of unity, and many, and this is well known in spiritual teaching, but the one that is most one known term unity is what's called that comes from non-dual kind of awakening or realization. Non-dual mean there is no separation between the observer and the observed. There are no separation between the various things that are observed. All things are not separate from each other, and you're not separate from them. And that's called, then you feel you are the expanse that contains everything. So the realization, non-dual realization, I am this vast expanse of awareness or love or empty kind of expanse, emptiness. And everything is within me, emerging from me. So I am. So that is the classic kind of unity. Everything is one, and I am that one. And I discussed that in the first and the second lectures. I gave different ways of experience this kind of non-dual. It could be all one as love, or all one as awareness, all one as presence, as beingness, or all one as empty awareness. So as I said, this is the most well-known unity in spiritual teaching. But there are other kinds known by some teaching, but not as well-known or as popular or easily accessed as the unity of oneness of non-dual experiencing, the one I have discussed in the first and second lecture. Now, to enter into this kind of unity, this kind of experience of unity that is different from the being the universe and everything as the universe is all one, and all things in the universe, inner and outer, are all what I am. And of course, I'm talking to you about from a teaching and from all my experience. I know all these from experience. Otherwise, I want to know how to talk about them. And I have some understanding of quantum theory since I studied in college. I was studying physics. So I'm sort of not engaged at the present time, but I have friends who keep me up to date, which I appreciate. Here, I'm going to bring in another important feature of quantum theory, which is called quantum entanglement. Many of you probably hear about it. This is one of the most famous things about quantum theory now. That is what is called, uh, well, I mean, I have a quote here about it. Quantum entanglement is a bizarre link between two or more particles become so connected that they share the same fate, acting as one system, even when miles or light years apart. Measuring a property of one instantly reveals the corresponding property of the other, as if they communicate faster than light. A phenomenon Einstein called spooky action at a distance. Einstein is the one who actually discovered it, who calculated, he made the calculation of quantum theory. Well, he contributed a lot to quantum theory, although he didn't agree with it. And one other thing he discovered, he thought was going to disprove quantum theory, is he discovered entanglement. That the theory, the equation leads to something what you call entanglement, when there are two particles very far away from each other, but they act as if they're connected, as if, and for him, for one to act to affect the other, there has to be at least the communication, at least as can't be faster than the speed of light. But this is instantaneous. So he said that's why he believed it will disprove quantum theory. However, it's been proven experimentally to be true. You call it spooky action at distance. It's actually not action at a distance, turn out. It is a major feature of quantum theory, explained very clearly. Quantum field theory, it is one field. So what happens in it can be entangled that way in the sense that the instantaneous thing that happened in one happened to the other. So as if they are, it's called entangled, which is as if there is, in some sense, as one way of looking at it is that even though they're far apart, they act as if they are in the same location. Because it doesn't take time for the communication to happen. This has become an important feature of quantum theory. It's been used, it could be used for many things, including quantum computing and stuff like that. So Einstein was proven wrong, you know, he feel about it. But I'm going to use that feature of quantum theory, which is the entanglement, to shed light on some kind of certain kind of spiritual awakening, where the question, where unity appears in a different way, which is not the unity that is of the whole expanded universe, but of a different kind of unity. As I said in the measurement question, quantum theory, experiencer or the observer is important. Same thing in spiritual realization, the experiencer or the practitioner is important, and their view or how they are probing, which is the same thing like making an experiment, how they're probing reality, how they're probing their experience is important in determining what they will experience. But we find one other possibility that I intend to illustrate here is that one possible experience for reality is neither dual nor non-dual. In the first lecture, I talked about dualistic realization, which is being, presence, or awareness, but not infinite, just localized, but pure and free and luminous. Non-dual, that presence is expanded to infinity to include the whole universe, showing itself to be the nature of everything. So that's the dual realization and non-dual realization. Here is a different kind that we discover, what I came to call unilocal realization. Instead of local, unilocal mean unified locality, which is very similar to the entangled reality of quantum theory. Quantum entanglement is quite similar to the experience of unilocal realization. In fact, we can think that quantum entanglement is directly the result of unilocal truth of spiritual reality, the underlying ground of reality. I'm saying we might take such a view, but I'm not asserting it, for I don't know whether it is true or not. I'm saying it maybe quantum entanglement has to do with this level of reality where everything is unified in a different way than non-dual, what I experience, which I will explain, what I call unilocal, unified locality. And so I'm saying maybe it is a result, maybe not. And so I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say it because I don't know it. I see similarity that I say, well, maybe they're related. But also quantum entanglement, I can't say, I cannot use that to say it is the expression of unilocal feature of reality, because who knows, quantum entanglement might be explained at some point in the future by a different theory, not quantum theory. Because physical theories are always changing and developing, while spiritual truths are eternal. You always find them, regardless of what time. What I call universal, unilocal experience, or unilocal awakening or realization, has many forms, as I will discuss, and known by many teachings already, actually, both East and West. The most well-known in term literature is from William Blake. William Blake obviously had a hit of it. He had at least some glimpse. He knew it because this poem cannot be explained in any other way. It's a beautiful poem. People loved it, but I think most people don't know what he's talking about. It's a well-known poem. Here it goes. To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wildflower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. It's beautiful, right? However, what does it mean? A world in a grain of sand. Sounds poetic, but he's talking about experience. It's not just poetry. The poetry here is coming out of some kind of experience that is known in his tradition by some the mystics. But I'll give you another quote here from a Sufi writer, Lahiji. His name is Lahiji, I don't know, 12th or 14th century. I don't remember. And here's the quote. Thus it comes about that every single thing contains in itself all things. One single grain of mustard seed, there are contained in reality all things that exist in the world. Thus the mystic sees all things and everything. This is called the mystery of divine self-manifestation. I could bring you many other quotes from Sufi teachings, but I'll go on to Eastern teaching. You know, when we come to Buddhism, for instance, which I'm going to give a quote from Buddhism, the unity in Buddhism is known mostly through its non-dual teaching, like Dzogchen Mahamudra, which is similar to non-dual teaching I discussed in the first and second lecture. But here, there is another brand of Buddhism that think of unity more in the way I'm discussing it, which is unilocal kind of unity. I haven't described the unity completely yet. I'm just referring to it, giving you a quote that point to it. This school is called the Huayan School in China. When Mahayana Buddhism went to China, first it appears as a sort of philosophical, mystical school called Huayan. And the main teacher, the Fat Sang, and that is his view. And I take this quote from a book that discusses Fat Sang teaching called The Buddhist Teaching of Totality by Garma Chang. Here's the quote. I am going to give a couple of quotes here and there because that illustrate things about unilocal realization. All particularity and individuality of Sheh is kept intact. The Sheh, in this language, they use the word Sheh and the other word is Li. Li is the fundamental principle, what is it, emptiness or pure awareness, that's the ground. And Sheh is any particular object, phenomena, state. So the idea is that all particularity and individuality of Sheh is kept intact, and yet each and every Sheh, I mean each thing, in all dimensions of Dharma Dhatu, which is the totality of reality, interpenetrates and embraces every other Sheh simultaneously without the slightest strain. So every Sheh is every other Sheh. Each Sheh contains all Sheh. Sheh is a thing, object, feeling, state, particular phenomena. So that is a fundamental part of this teaching, which is different from, well, to say each Sheh contains all the other Sheh. That's the kind of unity. All of it is there. The unity is in the mustard seed. As the Sufi says, and as William Blake say, in a grain of sand. A grain of sand contains the whole universe. So here in this realization, this experience, this realization is not of an expanse or infinity, as what's called non-dual experiencing, but of experiencing that each point is connected to all other points. The direct experience is more like feeling that one's particularity, like me in this case, includes all other particulars everywhere and the whole expanse. And it contains the expanse of the whole universe and all particulars within one particular. So one way of stating this realization is that each point of space and time contains or interpenetrates all points of space and time. So as you see, it is a different kind of unity than the non-dual, than the expanse, unity of the expanse. But it is still an experience of unity. that I have in me all things in the universe across not only space and time too. More formally, is the observation that any point of time and space includes all other points of time and space. In the language of quantum theory, all particles at all points of time and space are entangled with each other, or all particles are entangled with all other particles. That means the entanglement is more universal now as known in quantum theory at this point. Quantum theory doesn't assert there's no theory or observation or experiment that shows that all particles are entangled. Only there are usually a group of particles at most that are entangled. But to say the whole universe is entangled, that is not at the present time part of quantum theory. But the reason why I'm using entanglement is entanglement shows that one electron is so connected with the other electron as if they are in the same point of space and time. And quantum theory actually has proven that entanglement is not in just space, not in that particles very far apart from each other, but also in time. At different time, they can be entangled. So I have one quote that illustrates this. Not only can two events be correlated, linking the earlier one to the later one, but two events can become correlated such that it becomes impossible to say which is earlier and which is later. Each of these events is the cause of the other, as if each were the first to occur. Basically, there's more to it, but the idea I'm bringing here that the quantum entanglement is not just in space, but also in time, which is the reason why I'm using entanglement as a concept to help us understand unilocal realization, because unilocal realization is unity not just in space, but also across time. Usually, when this realization appears, it is unexpected, especially if one is used to thinking of non-dual as a true realization, because this appears as a true realization. I was surprised by its arising experience myself. I didn't expect it. I wasn't happy in my non-dual realization. And one day, this thing appeared. I said, oh, what the hell is that? And I realized as a particular, as this small human being containing the whole universe. And in this realization, the question dual or non-dual are irrelevant. So you can't call it dual or non-dual because the question of duality or non-duality are irrelevant in this kind of level of experiencing. Things so interpenetrate each other that the question of separateness or its lack cannot be applied. So the obstacle to this realization, each realization has a major obstacle. So the non-dual realization, the major obstacle is the identification with oneself as separate, always separate, and has to be separate. If you hold on to that belief or that experience of yourself, it's not possible to experience non-dual realization. The obstacle for unilocal realization is the belief holding on to the concept of distance, that there are distances between things. We take distance as ordinary, it's given, we think. Between here and there is a distance. However, in unilocal realization, if you hold on to this concept of distance, you cannot have the experience in unilocal realization. Because unilocal realization basically is the collapse of distance. Shows that distance is actually, at some level, is a concept. Now we are closer to each other than we think. We're so close. So one, we are within each other. So the usual experience of the primary way of experiencing unilocal realization is that I, as a particular being, contain all space and time, all the universe and all times. I contain you in my heart, all of you, and everything else. The I, of course, is not the usual or the separate I. The I is a kind of presence, kind of inner truth, spiritual truth, of a different kind than in the non-dual or the dual. It's not just presence and awareness, but a different kind of presence or awareness, where in it the distance disappears and everything everywhere feels as if it is here. The whole universe in immensity sits within me, in my heart. Another way for I saw that this kind of realization appeared has many ways. The main way I told you about it, which is that all points of space and time can be seen in one point of space and time. Each point contains all other points. In physics terms, that the block universe of space-time is called block universe, or space-time block universe, is contained in one point of time or space, or each point of it contains all of it. Another way the realization happens, in my experience, I am in the heart of each of you. I am actually in your heart. At the same time, you are all in my heart. You are all in my heart. I am in the heart of each of you. You might not be aware of me in your heart, but I feel and see myself in your heart, in the heart of everybody. Not as a body, but as a kind of consciousness, awareness. Some of you probably had this experience. You might not know it was a spiritual experience. Some of you know it. Some of you will think it's odd. How can that be? Because it sounds illogical. That's why I'm using quantum entanglement to help us understand it. Quantum entanglement is a bit 2 points very far, partially too far away. They act as if they are, and they have no distance between them. In the quantum theory, they don't say there's no distance between them, but they say they are entangled, which means if something happened to one, the corresponding thing happened to the other right instantaneously. So, from perspective of communication, of information, it's like there's no distance between them. One consequence of such a corollary, is the experience that can happen between two people who are both open to such realm of experience, who are both capable of this kind of realization, what I call unilocal, which by unilocal I mean unified locality. I don't call it non-local. That's a different thing, non-local. Each location contains all other locations, basically, in this experience. Which is an amazing thing when you think about it. Like even non-dual, I mean, you could say the whole universe appears spread out Everything is big. However, it's unified. There's no separation between that. So non-dual realization is closer to to be to the usual experience than unilocal is different, as everything is somehow all of space and time has collapsed into one point. And you will think, oh, that'll be very crowded. So, oh, that's the concern of many people. I've got, God, can I have everything in me? The fact is that it feels very spacious. Because it's all space and time are there, but differently from what we usually conceive them and or perceive them. So I'm moving from there to the experience of two people together who are capable or open to this kind of way of experiencing. So when let's suppose two people are capable and they are being there together, talking and interacting. The locality can appear here as the experience they are both one. They are in each other, or constitute one being or field of consciousness. Not that both are expression of the same consciousness, for this will be more like non-dual. They are not both expression of one consciousness, like two sides, or they're unified. There's no separation between them, but no, they are so interpenetrated. They are completely one. In the Hawaiian, the Chinese one, they call it interpenetration, which I find useful that way. So the two make up one. Imagine what happened to the heart in such intimate unity. It is a unity, but it's a much more unity actually than the non-dual unity, which means we are not separate from each other. We are both expression of the same field. Here, no, we are really one. We are in each other's hearts. The hearts have become one heart. The kind of intimacy is unusual, of course, because there's no distance between your heart and the other person's heart. It's like that one heart. The intimacy is complete. Intimacy is of different orders, total and complete. And the love that emerges is of a different order. For the unity is of a different order. So the feeling that emerges not only kind of intimacy, but a kind of lovingness that is a different order than the love that appears in both dual or non-dual realization. So I call the love that arises here, I call it magnetic love. Because as the two, as this love appears, it feels like a pull, like the two are pulled together. The pulling is really not that they should come physically close to each other, but it's more the pull is that the pull is toward that kind of unity. As they begin to experience that realization. I call that love magnetic love. We feel like love and deep, powerful love. The magnetic mean has a magnetic pull between the two. The magnetic force feels both like wanting and loving, wanting to be close and loving it. But the interesting thing about wanting and this love, which is really not usual in other kind of love here, because usually most wanting is from the self-centered kind of self, where wanting is a desire and has a grasping in it. Here, the wanting is like love. The wanting is pleasurable. Usually, for two people, if you feel you want to be close to the other, if you feel the wanting, it means there's a separation, and the separation can make the wanting more painful sometimes, especially if you don't think you're going to become one. Here, the wanting feels just as pleasurable as the love itself. Oh, actually, this magnetic love can explain the force and love in general. Why, when we love somebody, we want to be close to them. You know, many people say, "Well, I love them. Of course, I want to be close to them." Why? Why can't you just love them at a distance? You can, of course, but in generally for a human being, love means wanting to be close, wanting to be intimate. Well, of course, there are many kinds of love, friendly love, familial love, being in love, all of those. But all of them indicate wanting to be close, to be near. And this magnetic love explains that dynamic in all kind of love, which is the dynamism, the dynamic of movement toward closeness, nearness, being together. Now imagine what happened if such love, magnetic love, formed the bond in a relationship. What kind of delights the two will find, for their unity is total at all levels. But the interesting thing here, I'm bringing about two, but that shows a principle or a corollary for unilocal realization with all, each thing contains all other things. Each thing interpenetrates all other things. There are other consequences of it that are interesting. It means we can experience our unity with anybody, not only in space, but also in time. They don't have to be sitting across to us. I can feel unity with each one of you, with the whole universe. All of it is here. If I could contemplate anybody, I feel them here. But not only does I feel them here, because the unity is across space and time, I mean, I can be one with any other human being at any space or any time. So we can be one with any being at any time. I can be one with any yogi, any scientist or explorer, and know their mind and consciousness. It is actually the most powerful way of learning from a teacher is to be one with their mind. That is well known, but usually most people think of it as non-dual. Here is not non-dual. You are in their mind. That's one way I learned from great teachers. I became them, and I knew their realization because it was my realization. And then, I mean, if you're a philosopher, you can become one with Socrates, for instance, and learn what Socrates was thinking, or Heraclitus, or Nagarjuna. Also, because it gives us the capacity to be one with any other point of time space. It shows that where spiritual powers are come from. Telepathy, clairaudience, all these things, because Even memory is explained that way, because memory is nothing but I am one with myself in the past. It appears as what we call memory. That's why an experience force of reliving, we call reliving, it feels like you are in that feeling the same way you felt as a little kid. A regression. Because you are, in some sense. We don't go do it completely because we're not realizing that level. We still have our ego defenses, ego separate, and our belief that militate against this kind of unity. But the power of spiritual world requires certain development in the consciousness that requires all kind of work, all kind of practices to be able to see from the perspective of another person, from another place or another time. I've had experience of myself, for instance, from the future looking at myself now, for instance. But such a realization at the same time, I'm talking about the the primary features of this realization, how it is different from other unity, from other kind of unity, and other kinds of spiritual realization. So this realization, however, brings an unusual sense of freedom. A kind of spaciousness that has nothing to do with extension, because extension means space, means distance. And in the non-dual, there is infinity of space, even though it's just pure nowness, there's no time that passes. Here, space loses its extension and time loses its duration. We can say that space and time collapse totally. So there is a sense of freedom, and of course, all realization has a freedom. Here is again freedom, but it's a different kind of freedom. In fact, it becomes a way for us to enter into what freedom is. But at the same time, this unusual kind of realization, which seems sort of extraordinary, but actually, in the experience itself, is the sense of simplicity and orderliness. We feel orderly and life is simple. Yet the inner experience is far from what most people call ordinary. Or there's no sense of a big deal. And the local, non-dual really seems like a big deal. The whole big universe, infinite. So there's a sense of magic. Here it is a magic, but a different magic. Different magic is all of it here in one place, and doesn't feel crowded, feels spacious, feels free, but also feels simple and ordinary. Not a big deal. What I call a sublime ordinary. That does not negate the particular or the universal. One thing here is about what the particular. I'm talking about the particular containing all other particulars. Each sheh is every other sheh, as the Hawaiian says. In non-dual realization, the particular is not important. The particular is just one expression among myriad expression of the non-dual ground, the expanse of awareness or consciousness or spaciousness. So all the particulars are equal in that way, and they're not highlighted. And this realization, the particular is actually highlighted and seen to be not only unique but precious. For it is all and everything. You, as an individual being, you are all and everything. You are so precious, so and so wonderful because you are everything. So for us to realize we are everything, that shows us that, There's no reason to judge ourselves, to think of ourselves as limited or as deficient or anything like that. So I'm talking about the, let's say, in the dual realization, it's a particular that is realized. Non-dual realization is the whole universe is realized as you. In this unilocal realization, it's a particular, but it's not similar, not the same thing as the first particular, as a particular being that contains everything. It contains, in fact, the infinity of awareness, the infinity of love, all within this little uh, human being. So it brings back the particular and highlight its importance. So the unity of the unilocal is that the particular, whether a person or a bird, without getting any bigger, contains all and everything. It is a different kind of magic, and both are possible and realization, dual and non-dual. As we see, we need to be open in our practice, in our spiritual inquiry, spiritual contemplation. And it needs a kind of openness. Uh, Not to hold on to one view. When I non-dual, I say uh, that is the reality, and that's how it has to be. When we do that, we don't. Our openness is limited. Actually, we don't know it because the non-dual feels open. I am everything. But we are not open to other kind of realization, like local realization, and there are other, like non-condition I talked about, discussed last lecture. That bring in the measurement question, quantum measurement question, which is the result, that for there to be a result, and it need an observer. The observer is important. But here the observer is the openness of the observer. Because if we have that openness, we're open to many kind of realization, which brings in the quantum principle of superposition. There are many possibilities. We're open to all the possibilities. Here, I don't want to equate the spiritual or the physical, but to use the physical here from the quantum view to help us understand the spiritual and its openness to many possibilities. The openness to many kinds of realization is a greater freedom than the freedom experienced in any one realization. Each is a freedom from self and from suffering, but each will be limited if holding tightly to its view. For that limits our openness to other ways of experiencing reality. Holding on to any one view of realization or awakening is limiting to the potential of spiritual nature. This potential is infinite in ways it reveals itself. Just like in quantum superposition, there are infinite solution possibilities to what we might find upon performing an experiment. So acknowledging the validity of different kinds of ways of experiencing reality without having to reconcile them is a kind of freedom from mind, not envision any one realization. That's one thing when we have this openness, when we are open, when we are open to what I call superposition, which means to the infinity of ways, in many ways realization can be, is that there's a freedom, a different kind of freedom. That is not a freedom just of one realization, freedom to any possible realization. And then what part of this freedom is that the realization, like the unilocal and the non-dual, it will be difficult to reconcile. How can that be? The non-dual is expansive, infinite. Here, it one particular small contains everything. It contains everything. How do you reconcile the two? Logically, you cannot reconcile them. And part of the freedom, the feeling is that you don't need to reconcile them. Each is true, each is accurate without having to be reconciled. Reconciling is what the mind wants to do. Our spiritual nature doesn't need to reconcile things because its possibilities are myriad. It has many possibilities. So we see the magic of our spiritual nature. We can become more fully human, actually, respecting the truth of other teaching without having to grade them, without having to believe that what I know is the singular truth that surpasses all other. It's an unusual kind of freedom when we are open for other truths to be as valid and veridical as ours. We are not only open to many realms of reality, but we have the understanding that we are all equal and precious. All the major teachings are real and valid without having to grade them. This is a heartfelt kind of equality. So, I mean, that might be a lot, and I'm bringing in something different for you. And now I'm going to take 2 minutes off rest, and then we'll come back for our questions and comments.
Hi, Amit.
Hey, Mary.
Good to see you. Yeah, thank you. I have listened to all the three teachings, and actually, it was a teaching for me, not only of you, because what I realized was that before I thought always what would be a real spiritual thing would be like that my seeing changes in this kind of non-dual whatever, what I heard about it. So I was kind of waiting for that. And now I learned that this is already a veil. So because it's already a concept to expect something. And also I learned a lot about I feel more that I understood more about what a concept is. So how am I looking at the world and at the dual world, which I see, how that stands in the way and is not really open, even though I don't know how to open it up more.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a question, but I thought, or I remember that you once said that when someone gets a realization and this is the absolute, then this is by direct knowing. I imagine it's really that what you then realize that this is the absolute. So that seems to be then something which is logically, which is not containing all the other options. So maybe this is the reason why every teaching sticks to its absolute.
Yeah, everything, they call their understanding absolute. So we end up with many absolutes, which I think there are from this perspective, because there are different ways of experiencing our spiritual nature or experiencing ourselves from perspective of spiritual nature, experiencing the universe from spiritual nature. There are different ways. So I'm bringing different ways, and it goes beyond. So that way, I mean, we have to transcend many of our concepts, because concepts can limit us, and this is more direct experiencing. So thanks for talking, Marit. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Hi, Hamid.
Hey, all right.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
So this may be a question of just confusion of language, but if space has no length, no extension, and time has no duration,
Mm-hmm.
um, do they exist at all? That's one question. And is that merely an idea of where you are in your realization, whether they exist or not? And the other question is, so if this is true, then why do we call what we feel spaciousness? Because that implies some sort of distance or some sort of duration of time. So again, it may just be a question of language being limited, but I'm having a little bit of confusion around.
Well, your confusion is you're taking to what I'm talking about today, unilocal realization, to be the truth that negates other truths. I'm not saying it negates other truths. I'm not saying it negates non-dual realization. Where
Right,
there is a space, there is extension, it's infinite.
right.
It doesn't take into consideration dual realization, which is both space and time exist. So it depends on where you are about space and time. In this
Right.
realization, space and time become change so that they're all, it's not like there's no space and time. They're all there in one instant, each instant contains all other instants.
Well, yeah, I think my confusion is because I've always felt that that space and time were really just constructs that kind of order our reality. And
From of well, there are concepts. Well, you could say they're concept, but they have a reality. In non-dual realization, space is real. Infinity is real, and it's fundamental. And this experience, unilocal, doesn't negate that. It just says in this realization, it is not like that.
Mhm.
You see, if we hold on to it, has to be an extended space, then we close our openness, we can't experience this unilocal realization. If we experience it and not take it to be that's the only way it can be,
Mhm.
then other possibilities emerge. So the freedom here is that whatever I'm experiencing, it's true, fundamentally true, right? However, it doesn't mean it's the only way I can experience things.
Right. In the next second, it can be some other completely
It can
different
be
experience.
something else. Yeah. So that's why I say it brings a different level of freedom, different kind of freedom.
That's helpful. Thank you.
I'm glad it's helpful, or hopefully helpful to many others.
Hello.
Hey, Paula.
So happy to be connecting with you. I I am curious about in the different realizations when you're experiencing them, how your relationships are impacted, if they change, if you share with close relationships, I don't know, your couple, your friends, your family, what's happening to you, or the opposite, if that distance you or that makes you closer. Well, that's the question.
What do you do? Do you share everything with your friends?
No, not everything.
Well, obviously, it depends on who the other person is, whether they feel open to it. Or I don't want to share something with somebody that makes them feel, you know, make them feel difficult to relate to me. I want to be open to everybody. So I talk to each person depending on the situation. So if somebody is close to this realization, I can talk to them about it. But if they seem that's not part of their universe, where I won't mention it necessarily unless it's in a teaching situation. But socially, those realizations are our own. I can be experiencing Whoever I'm talking to is inside me, but they don't know that sometimes. Some, depends on the person, they might know it. Most people, they won't know I'm experiencing inside me, my heart. And that's fine with me. But there are different ways of experience.
But and further than talking about it, but just if you maybe you love them more, you like your feelings change maybe in that
Well,
help
all
you really.
realization, if you remember, they all have love in them. Love and kindness is true in all religions. Those are the things that are universal to all realization. Openness, sympathy, love, sensitivity, compassion. These are the outer expression of all realizations. So because these are the expression of spiritual nature itself, regardless of which way spiritual nature impacts our experience. And,
Thank you.
yeah, so human beings, when they integrate their spirituality, which means they have love and compassion, they're more fully human. That's why there's spiritual teaching, to make humans more human, more fully human, and free and happy. Good talking to you, Paul.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Hamid. It's so glad to be here and listening to your teachings. Especially, I'm fascinated about the teaching about unilocality. And when you were mentioning William Blake,
Yes.
I was thinking of the experience of Walt Whitman,
Yeah.
who we know that he's quoted in included in a book by the book called Cosmic Consciousness. And I was wondering if maybe the poetic experiment of Walt Whitman in Leaves of Grass somehow points in this direction, and also his view of a spiritual democracy, because I was wondering if these teachings could go into somehow for the future to support, to feed development of deepening of this view of a kind of a deep democracy.
Yeah, I hope so. That'd be nice. So, do you remember which poem Whitman he's referring to?
I'm thinking more about the whole of his
Yeah.
work, because he's speaking of
Yeah.
he identifies with workers, with people here, there, like
Yeah.
one man is all men are one man, like Jorge Luis Borges said.
So yes, and that's well, yeah, and I know some of about Whitman. I read some. So obviously here I'm talking about when I talk about you know the quantum view of spirituality. I'm talking about democracy of spiritual realization. Democracy between teachings and different practitioners from different teaching. They're all good, they're all real, they're all pursuing the real thing, and they are equal in their preciousness. And which makes all humans equal in their preciousness.
Also, this view of what you call this magnetic pull.
Yeah.
Is that divine eros?
Is that what?
Divine eros?
Well, no, divine eros is one expression of it. Divine eros is a larger category of thing, about a kind of energy, kind of relationship can happen. The magnetic love is more specific, more particular way of experiencing love. Divine eros has all the kind of love in it.
Right. Thank you, Hamid.
Good. So you know a different part of the teaching, yeah.
Hi, Hamid.
Yeah, Marlene.
Hi, good to see you. I want to thank you very much for this teaching and the way you give words to experiences that I recognize in myself. It helps me a lot.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Glad in yourself. Yeah.
And I have a question about especially what you said about unilocal experiences with people from the past.
Yeah.
So, do you have experiences with unilocal experiences with people you never heard of? You don't know in this life.
I wouldn't say, no, I don't think so. Usually for me, when I have experience, somebody from the past, it's usually somebody I'm contemplating, thinking about, or studying, or reading. That opens the field for me. I'm not saying it's not possible for what you're talking about. It's possible, but I don't have that experience.
Okay, I'm just curious about it. I'm not sure for myself.
That'd be interesting
either,
if I
but
become somebody I never heard of.
yeah.
I usually choose who I focus on because I want to learn something particular. Yeah.
Yeah, I also wonder if you would recognize this if it happened. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, and the realization says that's possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are many possible ways to think kind of experience. I don't know have them all. Yeah.
Mm.
Good talking to you, Marlene.
Thank you.
You take care.
Hello, Amit. Thank you very much for um, presenting your the non-duality and the non-local experiences. And my question is on the practicality of this, because I have what you were saying in the second part and this part of your teaching. I have some glimpses of these experiences, and but in one area, and the practical side of it is that when you're walking in a park and you are seeing or you're experiencing some appearance of a woman shouting at a child or a somebody handicapped, and and you mentioned that is the perception is not the perception I'm seeing. I'm seeing from the consciousness and the knowingness that of having kindness and compassion to the child and the person who's handicapped. How would you see this in this particular way, or explain in this particular way?
Well, if I happen to me in this realization, I'm walking in the park and I see the child or the handicap, I'll feel I am them. I know their experience by being them.
Okay.
So that is more immediate, more direct. Experience is more immediate and direct. At the same time, I know I am me. You see, I don't lose what I am, but I feel closer to the other than just simple perception.
And that feeling is
at the current side, there is a perception, there is somebody there, but also there's the feeling of being so close to them. I know them from inside.
and this feeling is like, there's a knowingness and consciousness of love or something giving them that the woman doesn't shout or something like that, or something like this that can stop.
Well, I have love for the child and compassion for both of them. Then
that's all the feeling is inside us. But what happens there is
what I do depends on the situation.
Okay. Okay. And
if somebody is I might tell, depending on the situation, if it's just a woman talking to her child and telling them to do something, it's not my business. But however, if they're abusing them, I might do something.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's what I can say.
It impacts all realization impacts our behavior similarly in terms we act with appropriateness, with intelligence, with clarity, with compassion and love. These are true about all realization, not just this realization. This realization just makes me more aware of the inner feeling of the other person, what they like.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm so grateful to be on screen with you, Hamid.
Yeah, Rose. Yeah.
And to know you in my heart.
That's nice for me that I am in your heart.
When you spoke of magnetism, it was like there was this wonderful upwelling, and I appreciate it. And I am aware of how teachings, I always get what I need. I may not recognize it at the time or in the form, but it's always what I need. And this week, I found myself saying, how I long to know the essential qualities that is expressed through every expression of the Enneagram. And it's like, here it is. Here it is. And I can have this and be grounded at the same time.
So the Enneagram,
it's amazing.
Yeah, the Enneagram qualities talk about 9 qualities. And here in these lecture, we're talking about realization, not just qualities, which is a larger perspective. The realization can have many qualities, all the qualities in it. The qualities are more than 9, I don't know, 50, 51, 49, I don't know. But realization, there are also many, not just qualities. I'm talking about realization, mean what I am, what reality is.
Yes. Yes. And I'm so grateful.
Well,
and
I'm so happy to see that you look grateful and happy. You're giggling happily. Good to see. Thank you for sharing your heart with us.
Thank you, my friend. My heart friend.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this series. I really don't have questions. I want to confirm a couple of understandings.
Sure.
When I was in college years and years ago, there was the question that we would always ask sort of rhetorically, what is reality? And as I hear your description of the superposition, reality is nothing but a probability at that level, yes?
Mm-hmm. Well, in terms of quantum theory, yes.
Yes, yes.
How reality appears has a probability.
Yes, yes.
It's not that reality is a probability. How it appears has a probability.
How it appears is a probability, yes. And all the essential aspects that you talk about in the book Pearl of Great Price, those are different probabilities, yes?
Well, no, these are what we call qualities of spiritual nature. Now, the probability is when will they appear? There is a probability whether they'll appear, how much probability they will appear or not.
Okay. Yes, yes. As they
are, so they are probably in the sense their occurrence will have a probability depending on the individual.
Okay. Okay. Yes, I understand. And the link you talk about, quantum entanglement being a link between particles, that link, it seems to me, must be the ground state, however you want to call that, whatever language your tradition uses to refer to the ground state. There's really only one ground state, is there not? There's really only one totality. Is there not?
There is only one spiritual nature. How it appears in experience depends on the experiencer.
Yes. Okay.
But there is only one spiritual. It's not like there are many spiritual natures. It's the same spiritual
Yes.
appearing. The same thing in quantum theory about superposition. It is the same, particles, but they're appearing in different juxtaposition and different kind of possibilities. When you measure them, you find, this is the way. Measuring them means having similar to our having an experience.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. And I, again, so appreciate your articulation of experiences that I've had no way to express. So it's really helped my own understanding.
I'm glad I'm expressing something that you have some experience of. That's great to know.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Hi, Hamid. I'm surprised to be with you. It really touched me, the whole talk, and it opened up a lot of questions. And I feel you in my heart. And it touched me that you feel me in your heart.
So you're closer than anybody thinks.
Yeah, sometimes I live in the mountain and
closer than it appears, yes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter where you are, you see, the closeness is the same.
Yeah. One of the questions I have, is this realization related with what you call the point in your teaching?
No, not really. The realization of the point is what I talked about in the first lecture, which I call about the dual realization, dualistic, which is being the point, being the timeless presence, the timeless reality. That's the point. Here is not about the point, really. It's a different thing.
Oh, okay.
Different kind of consciousness.
Okay. And there is another question. In quantum physics, the measurement is done by any movement, any whatever electron. How is this measurement done on a spiritual level? Like how from this pool of possibilities, what is kind of defining what it gets manifested?
Well, that's why I mentioned in the beginning, it depends on what question we ask. Same thing in physics. What you have a question, that question leads to a certain formula. It depends on a theory, a way of looking at things, and then there's a question, and then there's an experimental setup. You see, and then experiment is done, and then a measurement made, which is similar to what kind of practice we do, what kind of meditation, what kind of exercise, what kind of question, how open we are to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not equivalence. There's not an identity between the two, but there's I use the quantum theory as a lens to look at spiritual experience.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly the same. But the quantum theory is, in terms of science, is one branch of science that is helpful in understanding certain kinds of spiritual experiences, the ones I'm referring to.
Mm. Okay, so the question, it's kind of...
Yeah, the question is very important. What the question you ask, what you contemplate,
Mm-hmm. Okay, super. Thank you so much.
Yeah, what's your focus? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Magdalene.
I want to thank everyone who was able to join us for one or all three of these. If you were enjoying the opportunity to explore with Hamid, his next public event with us will be related to his latest book, The Inner Beloved, The Heart's Journey to Divine Unity. And this fall, he'll be joined by Diamond Approach co-founder Karen Johnson and Diamond Approach teacher Jessica Britt to help our community bring this exploration described in the book to life in a free webinar and three-month course. And I'm going to put a link in the chat to that if you're interested in registering or being notified about his next online events.
Thank you, Amelia. And of course, maybe everybody knows, all of the 3 lectures should be available to you to listen to them or watch them online. I think the first 2 might be already available. So all the 3 will be available for the public. They are free lectures. I wanted them to be free because I wanted them to be as open, available to everybody who might be interested. So I hope it has been useful. I wanted to open up the field to welcome anybody from any spiritual teaching or having any spiritual experience, to welcome you all into the fold that we are all real. We are all precious. And whatever meditation practice or spiritual teaching you follow is good. We continue to follow it. It will take us to one way of experiencing reality. They're all good. They're all true. They're all liberating. They're all fulfilling. And we don't need to say one is better than the others. That is the democracy here, the equality. So good being with you. I enjoyed also talking about these things. Of course, I could talk and do many lectures, but I think that's sufficient for now. So you take care. Hopefully it's been useful and will continue to be useful in your life. Bye-bye.